Since my early game review, I've played a lot more New World. At least, I did when I could get through the queue. These ended up being a soul-destroyingly long wait that essentially excluded anyone who worked a 9 to 5 from getting online. Server transfers did not arrive in time to solve the issue, but I will say that there was a patch to fix AFKing that did seem to have an effect. This reduced wait times on my own world significantly. That said, for a company that runs its own compute division, Amazon did not manage to scale the servers quickly enough for their MMO. If you compare Steam's time that has me playing the game against the game's own played counter, you can see the discrepancy between how long I spent in the queue and how long I spent in game. Most of the footage you're seeing now was all taken before my character hit level 50, which is the level I'm at now and is the level I hit when I took both of those screenshots. The game's been out for 11 days and I have a much better feel for the game itself. I've experienced a large portion of what the game has to offer. I've done expeditions, which end up being a bit of a mosh pit at times, and are a prime example of why this game needs a dungeon finder specifically for PvE content. In general, these end up being fine, but success is more heavily weighted towards having a good healer or an over-leveled party member join, rather than having a competent tank and a good group dynamic. I've also done PvE corruption events, which occur in the open world. These also tend to be a bit of a mosh pit. Turned up to 11. These require players to take anti-corruption potions or to have a good healer and stand in a darkly veiled area and play a horde mode. It's quite simplistic, but it does the job in terms of being an open world activity that did provide a decent amount of XP to level up your character. I do hope that they expand on these in the future to include a bit more of a structure aside from go here, kill this. I've also explored a lot more of the world. From the creepy Blight Town, which looks like a Halloween-themed residential area, to the pirate shantytown of Cutlass Keys, all the way to the lush plains of Morningvale. None of these areas feel particularly special, and while I can certainly tell one from the other, the pirates in colonial America feeling never goes away, regardless of which settlement you're in, and Ghost Pirate is an overused enemy type across the board. Leveling gets much more tedious as you reach the higher levels, and even certain gathering professions have harsh bottlenecks. There's a serious lack of balance between each profession as well. You can incidentally level some to the cap without much thought or effort, like skinning, while others require you to invest serious time and effort, like fishing or logging. This isn't helped by the fact that some areas were just lacking in resources, either because other players had vacuumed it up, or because they were never meant to be there in the first place. As such, there's very little in the way of consistent progression throughout the game. You need low-level ingredients to feed into the creation of higher-level ones, and while things like star metal were easy to find after level 40, iron was certainly not. Now that I've played a bit more of the game, I can say with a great deal of confidence that a lack of side quests hurts New World. Other MMOs can have 15 and 20 quests in one single hub. When you take into account quest chains from there, you can often get 30 quests done with one run. Side quests are used much more sparingly here, with only 2 or 3 at each settlement, and you don't get any more until you finish the ones you have. This results in more trips back to town to hand in and collect the next one, where you're often sent back out to the same location. It all felt unnecessarily restrictive, as though it was intended to slow the process of leveling. New World's main story missions are quite harshly level gated, and there can be large gaps between the first one that you accept and the next one you're meant to aim towards. Your only viable options between them are to do the side quests or the unimaginative town quests. While crafting and gathering does provide XP towards your overall character, the fastest way is still to go out into the world and farm these repetitive missions, and it's not a very rewarding experience. Enemy AI is particularly overzealous when chasing players. It's very easy for someone to accidentally, or on purpose, kite 7 or 8 rotting corpses onto you, despite you taking no action to draw their ire. In particular, some of the spawn rates on higher level areas are far too quick, and you can rapidly get boxed into areas trying to reach chests or named enemies, as mobs you've already killed spawn in behind you. In lower level areas, the problem is the opposite, where the player population is still high and the spawns are often not fast enough. In particular, rare wolves and bears in caves take ages to come back to life, and you often see players queuing outside of them, waiting to try and get a kill. Enemy density is a real inconsistent mess across the board, and it just needs tweaks here and there to bring it back up in line with many of its contemporaries. I moaned about the in-game mobility and travel system in my early impressions, and while I still hold that same opinion, I do think that if you charge straight down the main path, you get enough Azoth to sustain fast travelling and you're not going to run into any problems. If you start taking detours or going on crafting and gathering incursions, you are very likely to run out quickly. I think that having the same currency used for respecking your skills, perk crafting and fast travel was a poor decision, and even if mounts aren't added into the game, I think changing this currency or adding a brand new one specifically for this type of travel would be a good decision. What I do like is the nature of which the towns evolve as you visit and leave them. I remember seeing Monarch's Bluff on launch day with a tier 1 workshop, only to return a week later to see that workshop has been evolved into a tier 5 one, and it's visibly different. Yes, it does end up being quite annoying to leave all your items in another town that you don't have the right tier of crafting bench at, but these progressions were nice to see physicalized. On a related note, storage does end up being an absolute joke. You can't really pick a hub to base yourself out of, as the 1,000 weight that you get is not very sufficient. Storing items across different cities is only viable if you have an insane amount of Azoth to allow travel back and forth as required. One strong positive I will say is that gold in the economy now appears solid. The prices of common items such as ammunition have dropped like a stone, while rare tools like star metal ones have gone up exponentially. This is an organically developing beast and is working exactly as the developers planned. I do feel the cap on items you can sell simultaneously is quite harsh, but overall this is another excellent part of the game. So why did I choose level 50 to be a good place to stop for my mid-game impressions? I still haven't done everything the game has to offer, and certainly haven't gone to any of the end-game dungeons or have a feel for those, but the last 3 levels, particularly from 47 to 50, were a real chore. And I've hoovered up most of the quests on the map now, and I'm just essentially hitting a wall where I have to do repetitive quest after repetitive quest. Yes, I've been on some corruption trains that have started forming around the server, but there's just not the density of players at level 50 to help out with these. The towns and the settlements need more upgrading too. I'm waiting for crafting benches and tiers of crafting facilities that just aren't in-game yet. I'm hoping that rather than trying to plow through on this and force myself into a situation where I hate the game for how tedious it is, if I take a step back, give myself some time away, and give everybody else on my server a chance to elevate themselves, hopefully I come back next weekend and things start to look up. That said, there's not really anything else I want to play in October. And I do really like how leveling up each profession feels like a genuine contribution towards your character, as opposed to an irrelevant side activity that detracts from the charge to 60. New World certainly has that sense of permanent progression that all good MMOs have. But at the moment, it's not something I want to dump hours and hours a day into. And I honestly don't know what that means, as this is the first time I've ever experienced that in an MMO. Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Well, I think that depends on your playstyle. If you're a person who likes to sit down, devour everything, go through it once, and then walk away happy and content, New World might not be there for you. But if you're somebody who likes to, I don't know, chip at the stone, come back every so often, do a little bit here, a little bit there, and see how the world has evolved organically around you with the PvP and other players playing a real role in this world, then I'm going to recommend New World to you.